At 5 years old, I had a ping in my gut that told me that the dad that was raising me wasn't really my biological father. At the time, I didn't know how I knew, but I just did. Then at age 33, I actually met my birth father, and I discovered this powerful ping in our gut can actually help us make effective decisions when we learn to synthesize 3 information centers within us: our gut to alert us, our heart to align us, and our head to assimilate the unconscious information. I call this process gut intelligence. Gut intelligence combines these 3 information centers and works them together as a team. What we do is we get that ping in our gut, and when we immediately align it to our heart, we can then see the gap between reality and what it is we want. When we square with that gap, we can ask ourselves a problem-solving question like, how might I resolve this gap? And by being curious with this question, we automatically engage the head brain to help us solve the problem. Well, the problem is many people don't use this gut intelligence process. And we've got them 3 different information centers talking to us inside, and it can create a lot of confusion and a lot of anxiety. And what we have is a rise 65% in the last 10 years of people on anxiety and depression medication, and it doesn't make this ping go away. In fact, it can lead to impulsive behavior and addictions and dis-ease, like irritable bowel syndrome and ulcers, and maybe even sleepless nights. Well, that's what happened to me. See, my story started when I was 5 years old. And I said to my mom about my dad in the other room, he's not my real dad, is he? Well, who says that, right? Yeah. So, but you know, when you're 5 years old, you don't know. You don't have any preconceived notions of right or wrong, or that you might ask a question and get in trouble. But we sure learn quickly, don't we, that there is such a thing called the no-talk zone. You know what I'm talking about. When you try to talk about it, you get met with denial, dismissal, and demeaning remarks that can actually suck the power right out of your gut, get your head spinning, and make you doubt where you once knew. Well, that's what happened to me. My mom's favorite saying was, "That's your crazy imagination." You know what I'm talking about? And we begin to doubt ourselves. Well, the good news is this. You know what? You can change all that. You can change all that by having a board of directors meeting with your gut, heart, and head. And I call them brainiac, heartfelt, and gutsy. Invite them to the table to have a conversation, to share their perspectives until they get to this aha knowing. You know what that is, that heightened awareness that sends chills up your spine and makes you go, oh yeah, that's it. But you know, like any meeting, we have to have a certain process so that we are effectively communicating. And here's the 3 steps that we need to do. We need to make sure, first of all, that all 3 members are facing the truth in a clear, calm, and confident way. The second thing is we need to let go of our fears of the outcome so that we can think clearly and not be so attached to how it needs to be in our mind. And then thirdly, we need to really form an effective problem-solving question that will bring the truth to us and aligns to our vision, values, and goals. So let's take a look at this. And step number 1 first. Face the truth in a clear, calm, and confident way. That's easy, right? Well, no, that's like the hardest part, right? How do we face the truth in a clear, calm, and confident way? Well, we've all done this before where we did it. And we've got our head saying one thing, our heart saying another, our gut saying something else, and we make impulsive decisions. Like, you might know at some level that your child is making choices with friends and maybe some behavior like drugs. And you got that pain in your gut, but you're pushing it down. And to the point where you want to ignore the bird in the bush, or you get so upset you want to kill the bird in the bush. And that's not very effective, right? Or maybe you're listening to the impulse of your heart. You know, you saw that thing you wanted to buy, or you wanted to do that thing, but you knew long term it didn't really make sense, but you did it anyway, and now you're paying for it. over and over again, maybe in charge cards or maybe in child support. Or maybe you're the one that makes these decisions from a very safe place in your head. You know, it's logical, it's secure, maybe it's a relationship you're in, maybe it's the job you're in. But you know that's not your definition of love or success, but you're doing it anyway. But every morning your gut and your heart is telling you it's not right for you as you're talking to that spigot in the shower. Well, the way to get these three information centers in sync so they're talking together is just really one key, and that's deep breathing. See, research tells us that when we breathe 20 minutes a day, we can actually change our brain. Yeah, and a lot of great things happen from that. Number one, we change it from this busy, chattering beta to this calm alpha state that actually syncs up the gut, heart, and head and gets them communicating through the vagus nerve. The other thing is we open up the corpus callosum, which is this bridge in our brain, so that we can use the left and the right hemisphere of our brain in upper brain thinking that has logic, language, creativity, problem solving, and intuition. It also shrinks that amygdala in our brain, which is that part of our brain that sends us into fight and flight, and all we can see is either or, this or that. Now we can see more possibilities, where we couldn't before. And it also scoops up the neurotransmitters, the neurons, and the hormones from our gut, that unconscious ping, and sends it up the vagus nerve so we can process it. Well, here's the hard part about that. Once we get this all in sync with one another, not only are we facing the truth of the situation, but we begin to face the truth about our own fears. And this is where we have to do step number 2, is we have to face the truth about our fears and let go of them and the outcome in order to allow the truth to come to us in terms of what we need to do or say. So we need to look at what are these things we say to ourselves where we say, I can't bear this outcome. What is that for you? Is it someone's defensiveness, dismissal, denial, anger, abuse, a loss of a relationship, money or job that keeps you thinking, oof, I can't say that, I can't do that, because if I do, this will happen. So then we just don't do it, and we push it down. Or maybe what we do is we just decide to try not to think about it, and we escape these fears with drinking, drugs, binge shopping, binge eating, yelling, busyness, threats, cutting somebody off, withholding. Makes us feel powerful for a moment, right? But the pain doesn't go away. Or maybe we just try to make a decision, in one of these 4 very common ways but ineffective ways. We get into analysis paralysis, thinking that the answers are on an Excel spreadsheet, always trying to figure out what's the best outcome. Maybe I'm going to do Pollyanna positive, and I'm just going to have a great attitude, and if I project that, everything will go away. Not so much. Or maybe we just flee from the situation altogether because it's like, it's not going to do any good if I try to do or say anything anyway, so I'm just going to run away. Or maybe what we try to do is we force our will on somebody. Ground them, don't talk to them, scold them. That might change it for a while, but the old behavior comes back again and again and again. So, we can all relate to that, and I have to admit I can too. And some of these outcomes that we don't want are, we want their love and approval, so we don't want to risk that. We want to keep the peace. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or be hurt. Well, those were all the reasons why I stuffed my knowing down for years about my birth father, until about age 30, in fact. And I realized that this tendency to not listen to this ping in my gut and instead to try to manipulate and control these outcomes that I wanted got me living a life that I didn't love with people that I didn't really want to be with. So I quit my job and finally started having the conversations I really needed to have in my second marriage, which I was a little afraid to do. And since I didn't have a job and my husband wasn't talking to me anymore, I decided, I'm going to spend more time in meditation. So I did. And when I did, I finally faced my fears. And I realized that I can let these go. And I can desire the truth more than a specific outcome, and let it be whatever it's supposed to be. Well, when I did that, finally truth found me in the middle of the night. In my dreams. This dream I had over and over and over again, where I was 5 years old. I was coming from the back room of my grandmother's house up north, and I heard my mom in the kitchen, so I turned the corner and I walked into the kitchen, and there she was holding hands with a man. Now, I was having these dreams when I was about 30, and interestingly, this man looked a lot like my brother, so I couldn't figure it out. My brother was just about a year older than me. And when my mom saw me in the dream, she would yell at me, "Get back to bed!" And I would wake up in a sweat. So I knew the dream was trying to tell me something, and I had to spend more time in meditation and be more curious about what that was. Which brought me to step number 3. What we need to do is focus on a problem-solving question so we can align our heart's desire to our vision, values, and goals. And again, I had to remove all of my fears of the outcome and desire more than anything truth itself. So truth itself, when we desire it, it's just a whole total change in mindset. You can feel the openness. You can feel the curiosity. You're saying to yourself, is that interesting? I just wonder, how might I find out? How might I find out? Well, when we do that, the chattering in our mind of all the fears we had just drops away. And another voice emerges. And it's the still small voice, because we're no longer in a mindset of fear, judgment, and control. We're in a mindset of open, trusting, and allowing. So when that happened, interestingly, I heard to go to the basement and find this little box that had my father that raised me, his blood type on it. I found out that he was a positive blood type and I was AB negative, and my mom was positive, so I knew he could not be my father. I approached my mom. She eventually told me her story. I met my birth father. We did have DNA testing, including my brother, and we were both his children. And I did meet my sister, who was 4 years older than me. Shortly after I met her, she told me the story about a time when her dad got in a terrible car accident. And it was pretty traumatic for her family because he had been up north, and the secret came out that he had had a mistress that he saw. And I did the math in my head, and I was 5 years old at the time, and when she told me the place of the accident, I realized it was 20 minutes away from my grandmother's house, and suddenly the memory came up. And the dream was reminding me of a time I actually came from the back room of my grandmother's house and saw my mother and my birth father, and because he looked exactly like my brother, I knew. See, when we engage these 3 information centers in decision-making, our gut that just knows, because it does pick up these cues that give us a ping and tells us to pay attention, it alerts us. And our heart that aligns us to what we want, we have to remember that sometimes we block the knowing because we are attached to a certain outcome more than we are the truth. But when we shift that mindset, what happens is we can ask a problem-solving question. How might I know the truth? And what that will do is that will engage the head to assimilate the unconscious knowing of our gut and bring us to the truth in the way we need to know. Again, we follow these 3 steps. We face the truth. We let go of our fears and attachments to the outcome, and we focus on that problem-solving question to align us to our new vision, value, and goals. My challenge to you is to increase your gut intelligence by creating a superhighway of information that flows effortlessly back and forth between your gut, your heart, and your head. Thank you.